Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Women's Business Voice. You are in for a treat today. My name is Angela De Souza, and I'll be your host. And we have a very special guest, Sabrina Yegela. The title of this podcast is Tradition Meets Innovation with a Mission for Sustainable Africa. In this episode, we're joined by Sabrina, the founder of Bantu Vegan, a Tanzanian lifestyle brand that celebrates heritage through organic farming, plant-based products, and immersive cultural experiences. Sabrina combines traditional wisdom with modern innovation to create a business that prioritizes sustainability, community collaboration, and a holistic living. She'll share her journey from her roots in Tanzania to her studies at London Business School and her vision for expanding Bantu Vegan into a model for ethical entrepreneurship and cultural preservation. Whoa, we've got a lot to cover there. So thank you so much for joining us, Sabrina.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. I'm so happy to be here. And it's Yegela. I know it confuses a
Yegela.
lot of people because it looks like it should be Yegela. Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me. I know we discussed this beforehand and somehow I forgot. But anyway, Yegela.
No.
But it's a beautiful name. Sabrina, let's dive straight in. So tell us about your early life in Tanzania.
Yes, thank you. And again, I'm so happy to be here. I really love what you guys are doing over there. So I grew up in Tanzania and I've had a bit of a whirlwind journey actually. I was born in a small city. Back then it was a small city. Now it's a thriving business hub, but in a very small part of the city called Sinza. It was a bit of a chaotic neighborhood actually. So there was always so much happening. There was like a bar next to a church, and then right outside there was also very suspicious characters. It was also a very like big art and music scene. So a lot was happening. And my parents, especially my mom, was a little bit too afraid for me to spend time outside the house. So she invested a lot of time for me spending it inside the house, reading books, watching TV. And ever since I could remember, I fell in love with what I saw in the books and what I saw on TV. And I was determined to go to America one day because it seemed like heaven on earth. So I grew up basically gearing myself to leave where I was. I was so eager to leave the circumstances of my birth and eager to take my family with me. And so, yeah, when I reached the age of 14, I had gotten a scholarship to a missionary school run by German nuns. They were very strict. Don't recommend it. But there, a friend of mine had told me that if you pass your national examination results for Tanzania, because Tanzania would do these exams at 10th grade as the whole country, and they arrange you from like number one to like number 10,000. And if you get top 10 in that exam, you could apply to be a scholarship recipient at an American high school in Tanzania,
Wow.
which brings you one step closer to like going to an American college. And my 14-year-old mind was set. I was like, finally, the work of my whole life has been leading to this moment. And against my parents' wishes, because they were like, this is just a bet. And like, there's other schools that you can go to that are Tanzanian syllabus, but I was determined to go to this American school because I'd seen so much life out there and I felt like I wasn't getting any access to it. And I was determined to do it. And so I failed all my exams on purpose to all the schools that my parents wanted me to go to. It was my first rebellion. They never let me
You
forget
naughty
about
girl.
it. And yeah, so I failed out and I was waiting for the entrance exams, which was like 9 months later because they go in a different syllabus. So Tanzanian syllabus starts in January, American syllabus starts in September. And finally September came in and I set for the exams. And by then I'd already started interning at this computer program where because my parents were like, you can't just stay at home for free doing nothing because they were still mad at me. So I was interning
Don't
at this
blame
computer
them.
program. I know, me neither. Looking back, I can't believe they actually let me live. Um, But at the computer program, I met my first mentor. He was this amazing kid coming in from Harvard on a full scholarship, doing a project for his sophomore year, where he took the names of the people who had done well in the top 10 exams. And I happened to be one of them. I really strove for it. So I was number six. I've never forgotten.
Amazing. Well
And
done.
thank you. Thank you. And he was like, hey, I'm here to do this program and I'm using this venue. So it was pure coincidence. It was preparedness meeting. It was luck is preparedness meeting coincidence. So it was coincidence that he walked in, but I was
You had to do
prepared.
your part. Yeah, you had to do your part.
Exactly.
You had to be in the top 10. So it wasn't luck, it was your hard work. Yeah, I love you say that preparedness meeting coincidence. I love that.
And yeah, and he said what he was here to do. And I remember just going there and be like, oh, hi. I was like this eager kid that's like, 15-year-old walking up and be like, hey, I'm one of those students. Like, this is what I want to do. Can you help me? Like, I want to know how you got to Harvard because that's my goal at the end of the day. And he was so impressed and so surprised. And everybody was like, oh, why didn't you say anything? And I was like, oh, it never came up. Like, how do you lead that conversation? I was like, I was number something in the exams. And then he took me under his wing and he led me through all the processes, learning about SATs and ACTs and doing community service. Because when you're in the Tanzanian syllabus and you were in public schools or you're in like lower socioeconomic schools, you don't really learn about all these things that like people who are in prep schools or international schools are doing to really set them up as like learners and thinkers. And so he helped me. And then when I did the exam, I ended up being one of the four students that was accepted by that school. And then I ended up at
Amazing.
Dartmouth on a full scholarship as well. It was amazing. And since then, like the world was opened up for me. I realized that like I had so much access to like resources. I had to work for them. Because again, I also ended up becoming the breadwinner of my family and kind of like pushing all of us forward and saying like, hey guys, we don't have to stay here. We can go there if we just like take out loans and if we try and if we just like kind of be brave about it. And after Dartmouth, came back to Tanzania, tried to figure out what I wanted to do. I went into different sectors, so many different sectors. My CV is actually a case for lack of commitment, lack of loyalty to a particular sector, but it was amazing. I did everything from banking to nonprofit to working as a political advisor to an ambassador of Sweden for 3 years. So,
Wow.
but at some point, I realized that, okay, I've done all of this. I still am nowhere closer to really feeling like I'm giving back to my community because I felt like I had gained so much from all these resources that were given to me by very generous people, and I wanted to be generous back. But everything I was doing wasn't quite hitting the mark. And then I accidentally ended up starting my own business. And through that business, I realized that, oh, I can touch upon every single thing that I think matters and that I think I can do to improve my community, improve my society, and also create employment. Because I realized very early that, like, if you don't have a way to employ yourself, you're not going to make it or be any free in life. And then I ended up doing that and applying to London Business School because I wanted to learn how to do accounting specifically. And London Business School gave me even more than I ever expected. And now I'm back in Tanzania with like a full strategy of how I can grow and expand and how I can network correctly and how I can carry myself with the confidence that I see other people carry themselves with. But now backed up with like actual work and actual resources, but just knowing how to basically speak the language that the people who are in these networks and have these resources actually speak.
That's an
Yes.
incredible story. That is so loaded with wisdom and questions. And so I'm going to dive in with a few questions. I want to pick up where you said you accidentally started a business. I love that because I also say that. But what I've come to realize now, looking back, is I never intentionally set up a business, but it was always inside of me. And it was
Mm.
always going to come out one way or another. In your experience, having also accidentally set up a business, there must have been something there that needed to come out. What do you think it was?
I Honestly, I've thought about that before because I was like,
Mm.
this can't have been just happenstance, right? And then I looked back into my primary school years, like my childhood, and I was always entrepreneurial since then, actually. I
Yeah.
remember when I was in the seventh grade, I used to draw a lot. So I used to be really good at like drawing, and I loved puzzles. And then one day I ran out of a puzzle book that an aunt had given me, and then I couldn't afford to buy a new one. So I ended up drawing my own. I ended up making my own puzzle so that I
Wow.
could then solve it. And then a friend of mine looked at me and said, like, hey, I really like what you're drawing. This is really cool. Why don't we create copies of this? Because I know other people are going to want to do these puzzles and color in. And then we ended up just like coming up with this business plan. She put the seed money, it was very little, it was like $5 or something like
Oh,
that.
that's
And then she took them
gorgeous.
to the photocopy shop, and then we would take them in the morning, and then we'll distribute them in class, and we'll charge everybody like, I think it was like 25 cents at that time, like 25 cents, 35 cents. But then we ended up getting in trouble because everybody was doing the puzzles during class instead of actually focusing on the class. And I remember being called in by the teacher, and the teacher was like, you can't do this because the kids like sometimes will have to like steal money to get like money to pay for this books. How much money have you made? And I told them how much money we made, and they were like, how did you make all this money? And I just remember they killed the idea because they're like, this is not allowed at school grounds. But that was like, I think the seed for me of like
Mm.
it's possible to like create something out of nothing and gain, and if it has value for someone they will pay for
Yeah.
it. And so when I started my business, I don't know if you want me to go into how it started.
I actually want to just ask
Mm.
you one more question about that early business that you had. Wouldn't it be wonderful if teachers or parents or people in your community recognized at that point, wow, she has a gift, rather than closing it down and saying that you shouldn't do this? I think a common problem in our society worldwide, I think this is a problem worldwide, is so many times young people get into trouble, but we're not looking beyond. Actually, there's a gift there and there's a talent. And thankfully, you've still found your way forward. I think entrepreneurs will find their way forward. But wouldn't it be wonderful? And I'm saying this in case there's a teacher out there listening, or if there's a parent out there listening. Our children, they show early signs of the gift that's in them. And in your case, you clearly showed entrepreneurial gifting because you were able to take something from nothing and make a profit, which is incredible. And so I would love to see more parents, more teachers, more aunties, uncles, doesn't matter. If you recognize in somebody, maybe it's even looking like naughtiness. Now, in your case, it wasn't naughtiness, but in someone else's case, it might look like naughtiness where actually it's creativity, you know? And so I just wanted to interject that. What I would
No,
love to
I
do,
absolutely agree. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wish, I wish it had a different ending. Yeah.
I have a similar story. I never knew until in my 40s, to be honest, that I was entrepreneurial. That's what I meant to do. And then when I finally accepted it within myself, I looked back to childhood. I'm like, wow, it was always there. But nobody recognized it and nobody encouraged it and
Mhm.
supported it. And had they, I think my life story would have been very different. And I may have been a lot further ahead. But equally, we learn from our mistakes and failures as well, not only our, education and successes. And so, who knows? You can't change the past. But for my children, I tell you, I'm always watching and trying to learn about who they are, not make them into someone I want them to be, but discover who they are and encourage them. So hopefully I'm doing a better job.
I love that.
I'd love to jump to two things, and you can take as long as you want to answer it. When you started this business you have now, you said it was accidental.
Mhm.
And we've already uncovered one of the reasons was the gifting was always there for entrepreneurial. You were always going to be a businesswoman, so that was there. That's the first ingredient that we have when we have these accidental businesses. And the second ingredient will be a passion for something. So we're
Mhm.
passionate about something, and so that's when this kind of moment comes together where we take our entrepreneurship and that passion that comes together and forms a business. Make this a quick answer so we can move on to the long answer. Could
Mhm.
you identify any particular clear passion that you had
Mhm.
at that point?
Oh, absolutely. I had a passion for food. I became vegan in 2015, and I felt a little bit removed from my culture because of it. Because I thought that being vegan is only possible in California, in somewhere with
Is
a
it
very
very
high
meat and
tax
potatoes
bracket.
in Tanzania?
It's not. That's the thing. I actually
What is the
in
cuisine there?
there's a lot of staple foods involving beans. We eat a lot of corn as well, or we call it maize. I never know which one is which. And then we also have a lot of greens. There's so many types of
Oh,
greens. We eat the top of
wow.
sweet potatoes. We eat the top of a lot of things that people throw away.
Really?
And yeah, there's a lot of plant-based cuisine that is traditionally Tanzanian that I only discovered after I became vegan and I was like looking for ways to reconnect to my culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the love of food and the love of history, because I started loving food and I started looking for
Looking into it.
connection back into like traditional and cultural norms so that I can feel more connected instead of removed, especially right after the US. I spent too many years there and I was like, ah, where do I belong? But yeah, love of food is what really spearheaded my fall into business, actually.
I think that's so important, because you can have somebody who's discovered their passion for business and not their other passion. And I believe you need both, because if you go into business just because you love business, it becomes just about making money. And that's the only thing. Now, you have to make money in business. You have to, it's not a business if you don't. But I always feel like there's the two that have to come together, the passion for business and the passion for something else. In your case, food. You put them together, that's when you're going to really thrive. So, the long answer that you're welcome to now expand upon, what do you do? What is Bantu Vegan? Tell us anything you want us to know about it.
Thank you. So, Bantu Vegan is a female-owned, Tanzanian-owned company based in Dar es Salaam in Zanzibar, where we basically grow our food straight from the farm and we process it into the ready-to-consume products and ready-to-consume cosmetics. So we do everything from jams and jellies and powders and flours, and we also do soaps and shampoo bars, all in an effort to try and build a circular economy, like a non-waste circular economy that has a lot of verticals. So it also is sustainable in the long run, and so that it can also employ people of varying skills and take really good advantage of the context that we live in, which is very tourist focused, which is very also agriculturally focused. So those are the two areas that we are now sitting at because we do experiences, products, and produce.
Okay. So, how did you go from discovering you had a passion for food? What was the very first thing you did, the very first step that you took?
Yes. So I actually, when I was about, how old am I now? When I was 30, I had a crisis of faith and a
Oh,
crisis of what am I doing in my life, essentially. I felt that and now I'm 34, so that was like 4 years ago. I felt that I felt that I had worked so hard. I had gotten so many opportunities, and I really couldn't really put it all together and show that this is what I've been working on. This is my life's work so far. I feel like a lot of people have existential crisis at 30, so I'm not really unique in that perspective. But I had started to look at what are the resources that I have? What can I do else that is like would be worth it and would help my community to grow, and I could do in a way that is reflective of every job opportunity I've had, every skill that I have, and that I have given to other people. And so I realized that along the way, I had started farming. And we had started producing a surplus. So I was like, okay, the resources I have is land. And then I had started farming. And up to that point, we had so much surplus. And we started first selling to the community because someone knocked in our door one day. And at first, we had just done it just so that we can like not pay for groceries. Because I was like, oh, there's
yeah.
a lot of mouths to feed. Tanzania is a very, we really live with our extended families and we support our communities. We live kind of in a very socialist kind of way. And we used to be an old socialist country, so that makes sense still to this day. And the someone knocked in and said, "Oh, I heard you guys sell spinach." And then I remember my mom being like, "We don't sell spinach." I was like, "Shh, let the woman speak. Yes, we do sell spinach. How much would you like to pay for it?" And then we just started like that. And then we started, what else can we grow? We started growing pineapples. But then the pineapples got so many that we started making juice because we were like, all right, what are the ways that we can traditionally extend the shelf life of this and like use it for different things? And then we started making juice and jams and jellies, and people really liked it. And then I realized that, oh, this is like a business that is paying for itself now. We're taking this money, we're investing it back into the farm and part into the community. We're hiring more people. Why don't I register this as a fully fledged business, brand it in the way that I was doing with other companies, because I was really involved in communications and marketing and yeah, mostly communications and marketing. And even for the embassy, that was what I was doing. And so I was like, all right, I can do a lot of good with this because I saw the effect it had on the people that I was working with, on the farmers that we collaborated with, on the farmers that we ended up training, because they would ask, like, how do you do this? How do you grow mushrooms? And we'll say, oh, this is how you grow mushrooms. And so it ended up going from we just want to make food that we can eat to, oh, I have this fully fledged, like, growing business. And
Wow.
now I need to brand it and make it into something that is more solid and something that's more sustainable, and something that actually can stand as a brand. And what I realized we were doing was a lifestyle brand. And
Mm.
then over the years afterwards, up until this day, a lot of different things started happening. People started reaching out and saying, like, hey, I heard about you from this organization that we worked with, or I heard about you from a friend, and I saw you on Instagram, even though that's another marketing strategy we need to improve. I saw you on Instagram, and I like your soaps, and I like your food, and I like your cassava flour. Can I come see the farm and how you're doing it? And we started doing day tours. And then I realized that, oh, there's also, this is a service and it costs money and people are willing to pay for it.
Mm.
And we live in a very, tourism is our third biggest GDP provider for our country. So people are really used to Tanzania as a safari destination or a tourist destination. And then I realized, oh, farm B&B. I can build a farm B&B or an Airbnb, but for the farm. And I can invite people, I can host people. I can even do exchanges with other nonprofits that my friends are running, and have people stay here. And then we can teach them how we do our sustainable farming methods. And we can have that be the third and final chain in our product produce experience ecosystem. So it's
Mm.
been a very kind of holistic evolution, where we take something that works, we run with it, we add something, and if the customers like it or if other businesses want to purchase and partner, we continue it. If they don't, we discontinue, and then we keep adding on to that. So essentially, that's how it happened for me. And then yeah, and then I actually applied to LBS saying that I have this business, I have all these ideas, but I need someone to talk to either refute my ideas or to expand on the ideas. I want to see what other people are doing. And that's how it all kind of like really came together and fortified it for me that, like, yes, this is my
Mm.
life's work from now on.
Wow, wow. So let's build a timeline. When did you first start? When did you start farming for your family just to make your own food to eat? What year was that?
Oh, yes. So that was 2017.
2017. And then when did the spinach lady knock on your door?
That was 2019 was a spinach lady knocked on my door. And
Okay.
then 2020 was when COVID hit. And then my dad had already retired by then. So he started with the farm. I was like, hey, do you want to do this? 2017. And then 2019, someone knocked on the door, and then we started selling in surplus. And we realized that, oh, we can grow other things that we don't need to consume ourselves. And so we planted cashews, we planted cassava, like in larger amount, because that's a staple food here, or yuca.
Mm-mm-mm.
And then 2020 was when all hell broke loose around the world. And
The
my mom
world,
also,
yeah.
absolutely. And my
Mm.
mom lost her job during that kind of like COVID shutdown. And then she was like, what else can I like I asked her like what would you like to do? Like, you have all this time. We don't have to worry about anything for at least a few more months. Like, don't worry about it. Like, what do you want to do? And she was like, you know what? We care so much about what we put in our bodies. We're growing things organically. We're taking good like care of ourselves. But what about what we put on our hair and our skin? And then she started a course. We started a course online together run by this really lovely Canadian lady for making organic soaps and making organic shampoos. And then we just kept experimenting. And then towards the end of like 2020, I registered it as a business because I saw what was happening and I could see it as like we could basically be a lifestyle solution to anyone that
Mm,
wants to
mm,
live
mm.
organically and naturally in Tanzania. And it doesn't have to look like a really rich lady in California. It can
Exactly,
look like
exactly,
traditional
exactly.
plant-based, culturally informed living, but locally.
And so, what made, because it sounds like from 2017 to 2020, everything was successful. What made you feel that you needed to study, to go to London Business School? And why did you feel you had to go all the way to London to study?
Mm. That's a very good question. Thanks for asking me that. So by 2020, actually no, from 2020 to 2025, a lot has started happening, right? We had started also getting requests from hotels, for example, who wanted to purchase
Wow.
mushrooms in surplus, like for their restaurants and things like that. And we also had like suppliers that we started having for like the oils, some of the oils that we don't grow ourselves, or we don't make ourselves. We have to get them from suppliers. And there was so much that was happening that I realized that like, oh, I'm just a one-man team. I wasn't
Mm,
exactly a one-man team, but I was kind of like the managerial
yeah.
team. And a lot of people were coming to me and looking to me for answers. And I started not having some answers at some point. I started being unsure of whether
Mm,
I'm taking
mm.
this in the right direction, unsure if whether this is intuition and the intuition is correct. So I didn't have that business expertise. I worked for other
Yeah.
businesses, I worked for other organizations, but I didn't have it myself. So I felt like I wanted a much more solid foundation to really
Mm,
know that what I'm doing is correct. So a lot of what I did at London Business School was like I would learn about strategy, like foundations of strategy, and then I realized that I have an architectural strategy. I didn't know that it existed. So just
mm,
hearing that like this is an architectural strategy and this is what makes it an architectural strategy where you are refining the supply chain of a particular industry or a particular sector, which is what I was doing with agriculture. It made me feel much more secure in my decision making so that I don't let
mm,
down this team that was growing and that's like depending on me. And also, I didn't understand the process of fundraising because I realized that like a lot of people, they talk to investors or they apply for grants, but I didn't know how people get to that stage. And I wanted
yeah.
to also learn about that. I heard a lot about venture capital. I didn't know what that was. So there was a lot of filling in some gaps that
Mm,
needed to
mm, mm.
happen. And I felt that a lot of farmers, so farming is considered a poor man's activity in Tanzania still because it's very subsistence. Even our farm is not very big. It's only 50 acres. And but it's not really done with modern ideas and tools in
Yeah,
mind for
yeah,
most
yeah.
people. So I
Mm,
thought, okay, if I want to do farming, I want to be successful at it. And what I had seen be successful up to that point was really good branding, really good story, a unique selling point.
yeah.
And this is also something that I used to argue with professors, but I still believe it's true, and well, most of them do, that you have to diversify because farming is very climate like attached.
Mm,
And the problem is that like sometimes if you have a bad crop of something, but if that's the only crop you grow, you could die in like two
yes,
days.
yes.
But if you do
Yeah.
value added farming, which is what we are doing, where you process some of the things eh, you make a profit, you buy a machine, and then you like do some of the internal processing, you can get a higher margin. You can also get like a much more better positioning in the market, especially with my brand, Bantu Vegan, that is small but growing. People already know us to be good at like this particular thing that we do, which is vegan, organic, sustainable, ethical. So we already have that trust. We just need to keep providing value and also getting value back from doing this and expanding on it. So I essentially just needed something that would give me that foundation to build
Mm.
that strategy and have that structure like be more solid than it was at
Mm.
that point.
If what percentage would you guess roughly in your studies formed confirmation? Actually, I am doing this right, and this is the label for it, and actual education, learning something new. If you could just think off the top of your head, what percentage would you break that up into?
That is a really good question. Again, I would say 70% was confirming and 30% was learning something
Learning.
completely new. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I would have predicted, because it's so interesting the way you speak. You already know what to do. It's instinctive. It's there. But sometimes studying can be so lovely in confirming. Actually, I know my stuff. I know what I'm doing. It's always been there. And when that happens, and tell me if you found this or not. When that happens, when you get all that confirmation, you then start to trust future things, because
Mm,
you know it's come from within and you know it. And so you can make bigger decisions, or you can do strategy, you can do things because you've had so much confirmation at business school that actually it was always there. You were doing the right thing all along. And that
100%.
30%, that 30%, I would agree, because there's always something to learn. And I would be worried if you weren't learning. Like, we all should be learning all the time. So there should always be that 30%. But in my journey, I found the same thing. I found a lot of times I would do a course or I attend a lecture or something, and I'd be like, wow, that's what I was doing. I just didn't know it was called that,
Yeah.
or I have that strategy. I didn't know that was the thing. Did
No,
you find
absolutely.
that greatly encouraging?
Oh, it was amazingly encouraging. And honestly, props to the professors and the lecturers and like the network at LBS. It's full of these amazing individuals. The professors are so well researched, they're so well experienced, and the lecturers were also like people from like basically doing everything that you want to do, but they've already done it at scale and in amazing ways. And then the networks as well, like how I met you at that
Yes, it was
conference with
amazing
Bantu
how we
Vegan.
met.
It was just such a beautiful place in that like you were always learning something new. You were always meeting new people that have done things that are completely inspiring and completely like amazing. Yeah, no, it was really great. So like that 30%, it seems like a little, but it was actually so much.
So
And it
much,
also
yeah.
opened me up to like learn how to learn. So that's
Yes.
always been something that I felt was kind of different in like my educational upbringing. And then my education that I received externally. Actually, you asked me a question about why I wanted it at LBS,
Yes, that
why
that
I
was my
wanted
next
to
question. Why all the way London?
why all the while London? So, unfortunately, the education system in Tanzania is not quite like the best, to be honest. Like, it's doing a lot, it's trying a lot. We have universal education for all the old children, so everyone has access to public school, but it still has a lot of lack in the process.
Mm,
There's a lot of lack about materials, there's a lot of lack for like capacity, like teacher to student ratio is always like not really like the most optimal. And then we are not always ahead of the curve when it comes to like changing technology, changing needs for the working population or the future working population. So
mm,
I
mm.
knew from my previous experience of going from a Tanzanian school and getting a scholarship and
To
going to an
America,
American
yeah.
school just how much that gap is. And
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
knew that I wasn't going to get the level of education that I wanted if I pursued a business school degree inside of Tanzania. Because also I know people who
Mm,
have taken an MBA in Tanzania. My mom did one. And yes, it's like but cheaper, but she was like it was not useful for her like at all because it's a
mm,
lot of
mm,
like
mm.
just reading and like lectures. It's not the same. holistic, immersive, like really forward kind of education that honestly LBS and other top schools like that in Europe provide. So I knew
Yeah.
from the get-go that I needed to go outside to really get the kind of learning that would not just set me apart, but also give me those tools to be able to be in those rooms and do it confidently.
We're actually out of time, but I have more questions, so we're going to go over time. That's just that. There's too much to talk about still. I'll try limit it to two questions. So my first question: think of your top three lessons that you've learned along the way that you can share with others, and then my final question will be: what's next? What's the dreams for Bantu Vegan? So let's try and come into land with those two questions.
Okay, three lessons that I've learned that I want to share with others. One is do away with imposter syndrome. It's such a challenging thing to do because especially if you come from a background that's a little bit more like you have to have a little bit more grit to get to where you want to get to. Sometimes you feel like you're not capable, and
Mm,
it's subconscious and it sits at the back of your mind, but do try to get past that and look at all the things that you've achieved and know that you're there and you belong there on for a reason and on purpose. And then secondly, I like to say the more you know, the more you don't know. So always
absolutely.
always seek to learn and always seek to improve and just know that there's always a better way of doing something and be open to like catching it or hearing it when it happens. And then nothing is doable without community. I am so grateful that I'm capable of doing what I'm capable of doing because of the community that has enabled me up until this moment. And even as I speak, they're supporting me and uplifting and just being the yes and to your improv, you know? So community is everything and the right community as well too. So not just anybody, quality over quantity, but
Yeah,
I would say community.
absolutely.
And what's next for Bantu Vegan? A new facility. We are doing some drawings for our new workshop. We are trying to get Tanzania Bureau of Standard regulated, so the certified, sorry, so that we can actually start selling at much higher quantities and to businesses that otherwise wouldn't take our products without the Tanzania Bureau of Standards certification, but it requires very organized metrics for the workshop. So that's going to be it. Impact funding. I'm looking right now for grants and for investment, and so I'm doing a lot of like the groundwork to try and look for applications that I can do and to try and meet people that are interested in speaking to me for a variety of reasons. So that's terrifying and exciting. And then lastly, we are looking to build up our team so that some of the workload can be kind of like much more efficiently spread out and we can actually scale sustainably. Yeah, those are the
And
dreams.
so that's amazing. And so is Bantu Vegan only available in Tanzania?
As of now, it's only available in Tanzania, and that's why we're building a new workshop facility so that we can get the TBS, Tanzania Bureau of Standards certification, which will give us the next stage of being able to export to East Africa, so our neighbors, Kenya, Uganda, and then also start the process of, after that certification, being able to be able to do the European standards of regulation certification so that we can actually export outside. And we're talking
Wow.
to e-commerce partners. There's a friend of mine that I went to primary school with, which is insane to say, that is working on her new project over an e-commerce platform to do export outside, all the way to the UK and the US. And we're in conversation about how we could collaborate on that. So one day I hope to export, but I'm trying to do all the correct processes to get there.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. I mean, this is going to be global. I can see it. You're going to get your brand all over the world whilst changing your country. Like, amazing, Sabrina. Well done. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. Where can we find you so we can watch all of this unfold and see how things grow?
Yes, thank you so much, Angela. You can find me as soon as you type in Bantu Vegan, you'll find us on Instagram, you'll find us on TikTok, YouTube, and our website is bantuvegan.com.
Nice and simple. So we're going to be following you, and we're going to find out when it's going to be available for us in our countries. I just wish you every success. I think what you've done is incredible. I think who you are is incredible. And I know that many other women in Tanzania are going to be inspired by you to be more than they ever dreamed they could be. That's what I see. And so well done on what you've done, but also well done for being, a leader for the next generation. Keep sharing your story. Keep telling people, the struggles and the joys. And I'm sure loads of other young women will be looking up to you and seeing that they can do more with their life as well. So thank you. And that's it from us. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on Women's Business Voice, where women rise, lead, and make an impact. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a woman who needs to hear this. Want more inspiration? Visit womensbusiness.club to connect, grow, and be seen. Until next time, keep showing up powerfully. The world needs what only you can bring.